project, if maybe the outcome of the project wasn't what everyone hoped, but I think if you can speak to the fact like, well, at the end of the project, we achieved this, we would have liked to see a bit more on this end. Here's what, you can say, but here's what I learned from that. And here's how I think the team could do things differently next time. And then you could also bring it back to yourself and say, like, for the pieces that you can bring it back to yourself. But I don't think everything has to be like this, big glowing success. Like if you did some really impactful work that you can talk about as part of a project team, even if the outcome of the whole project wasn't successful, if your piece of that was successful, then I think it's okay to talk about it. Here, pass it to you.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that, because if you, I think.
Can you say that again?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I do agree with that, but and I don't do that too often with Debbie. But you think about it. I mean, if you go in and you talk about a project and be honest about it. I mean, everyone knows you're going to have success and you're going to have failure at times as well. It's how you deal with failure is what's going to make you into a stronger employee. So don't be embarrassed by that. I mean, if a project went great, fantastic, share with them, but if it didn't, if you had some hurdles to overcome, share with the interviewer. Tell them that, as Debbie summarized, what the pluses were and what the minuses were and what you learned from it as well.
And then Nicole had a question: what should we say when we have not been in a situation the interviewer asks about? Pierre, do you want to go first on that one?
Yeah, I mean, if someone asks, that's a great question, because oftentimes someone will ask you a question, and maybe it could be a technical question, it could be something. If you haven't done it, then that's when you don't want to go down that avenue of trying to fudge. In other words, be honest, without a doubt. Let them know that you have never encountered that or you haven't dealt with it. I think one of the big things today is that people feel that on the resume they have to put down so many different items, and especially regarding technology. And obviously, the wave of the future for actuarial, which is, I mean, being an actuary is difficult in itself, but now there's a strong emphasis on the technical skills. And so you'll see that Python and R and VBA and SQL, they're looking for that. Most companies are looking for that actuary that has that strong technical background. If you have a technical skill on your resume, rest assured, they're going to ask you about it. So I recommend, and it's really done wonders for most of the aspiring actuaries I've spoken to, is to capture, if you have Python but it's light or intermediate, put that down. Don't put down you're an expert at VBA, and then when he asks a few questions, you can't even address them. I've had that happen recently where someone put down expert level and they couldn't even answer the basics. So once again, if you're honest with your skill set and the work you've accomplished, it's going to get you a lot further along than others. That's really important.
And I'll throw in too, like, let's just, I don't know that much about the technologies, but let's just say like, you don't know Python, right? But you took the initiative, like you can say like, look, I'm only a beginner in Python, but just say, something like, but I was able to learn VBA, SQL. I took the initiative to learn that on my own. I really enjoy technology. So I'm not opposed to going in, taking a class, like hopping on YouTube. Like someone that shows a lot of enthusiasm for learning is almost just as important. And especially, if it is a more entry-level role, like they probably know you're not going to have every single skill, but it's more so if you show the aptitude and the enthusiasm, and the same thing, even in the question where if it's a situation that you haven't run into, but if you have a thought as far as how you might handle that situation, depending on you can say, I've never run into that, but this is how I think I might approach a situation like that, and and do it that way too. So you're welcome. Okay, and then the next slide, I think Pierre's going to do things to avoid during an interview.
Yeah, so we kind of touched base on a lot of this, but once again, if you're asked a question, don't dominate the interview. Remember, you're being interviewed and you'll have the opportunity to ask some questions as well. It's twofold. They're interviewing you, you're interviewing them. But remember, to kick things off, let the interviewer take the lead. When you are asked a question, make certain your answers are precise, to the point. You don't want to elaborate too much, because if it's a 30-minute interview, 30 minutes goes by pretty quickly. The next slide, the next bullet point is be careful not to show signs of nervousness. I'm not in agreement with that, because all of us are nervous. We're apprehensive when we go on interviews. Just try not to, but of course, if you are, you can certainly I've had candidates start off interviewing and just say, I'm a bit nervous. A good interviewer just try to put the interviewee at more or less calm them down. So the next point is never be critical of past employers or past individuals. You don't want to bring up negativity in an interview. Okay, you can always discuss challenges you've had with projects and so forth, but never be critical of past employers, because just not a good sign. You know what, don't elaborate on that. Again, if you're asked a question and you don't know it, well, you don't know it. Admit if there's something you don't know, let them know. As Debbie pointed out, if you don't know Python, just say, no, I haven't had the opportunity to learn it, but my intentions are to take a course. I love the opportunity to pick it up. As you can see from my resume, I'm well versed in VBA and SQL, so I have the aptitude of learning, Python or R, or whatever it may be, because you're really bright. Debbie, you want to chime in on that as well?
No, I think you
Or
can.
Morgan, you can chime in too.
Yes, I was just about to chime in about the signs of nervousness. And I guess we go back to taking the time before your interview to kind of that's when I do, I prep kind of the night before, the day before. I look through job description a week before the interview, but an hour before my interview, I do something. I might work out. I might watch my favorite show or listen to my favorite song or something to just get rid of that nervousness, and just remember that it's basically just a conversation and we're getting to know each other, and kind of remind myself that I am qualified for this position. So I would not be there. I wouldn't be here talking to this person if they didn't think I was qualified either. So just really getting out of my head, because we can really be there, kind of doubting ourselves or, a lot of things. So, take that time also before your interview to just work out those nerves,
Yeah, that is a great point.
That's good.
Do something that it's going to put you at ease, and, practice makes perfect. We'll go over a few items in a little bit, but, to prepare, you think about it. I remember when I was in college, I had a final exam and I just crammed for it a couple of days before, the night before, and I just said to myself, boy, if I just would have taken the time just to prepare more thoroughly, I probably would have done a lot better than I was going to do. So preparation is really the key, because if you're well prepared, those nerves are going to go away. They definitely will go away.
Definitely.
Debbie, I think you had something to share as well.
Oh, okay. No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Concluding the interview, is that your page or mine, Deb?
I think it's you.
Okay, so just once again, we discussed a lot of this. Ask the questions you prepared for. Summarize key points. At the conclusion of an interview, ask what the next steps are to the interviewer. That's fine. You can always have a follow-up call with the recruiter. As I share with you, make notes about the interview. If you didn't bring in a pad or ask permission to take notes down, definitely after the interview, because generally when you walk away from interviews, when you're going to remember the most, jot it down, think about it. And you may walk away from an interview and just say, I should have asked a question. It was a question I wanted to ask. I just never thought about it. Well, jot it down, and you can always have a follow-up with the recruiter. And oftentimes, if you are asked to come in for that second round of interviews, you're going to have the opportunity to ask that question as well. I think it's a really good idea after an interview to send a personalized note to each interviewer. It does help. You're always going to follow up with the recruiter. A good recruiter will follow up with you first and foremost. But sending a personalized note is a really nice touch. Now, keep it short and simple. If anyone needs advice on what type of formatting for the note, you can reach out to me. In conclusion, I'll give you some tips and tricks of what you can do.
Yeah, and I would just on the follow-up on the follow-up email thank yous, which I do think is a very good idea. Just make sure I just had one, and it was a higher level position, and part of the position was writing, like they had to do grant writing, and their thank you note was not that good. And they probably thought, well, this is just my quick thank you note. I'm just sending but they look at that stuff. So if there's grammar, if there's spelling, they're thinking to themselves, well, this was an important note because you're interviewing for this job. So if you're not taking time, attention, and detail for this, then what are you gonna, are you not going to have that attention to detail in your role?
Yeah, great. That's a really good point, Deb, because I've had a few candidates that have sent follow-up thank yous to hiring managers, and they because they didn't proofread, it kind of hurt their chances. I always suggest if they have a follow-up note, to send it to me, and I'll send it to the hiring manager. This way I'll proofread it, and I'll get back to them. I go, hey, you might want to take a look at this again before I forward it. And they'll thank me for it. So, yeah, make certain that you do proofread. That's really, really important.
Yeah. And then I want to be cognizant of time, but I think this is a good question. So Daniel has a question about getting nervous during the interview. And then is it possible to ask for a few minutes just to calm your nerves? So here's what I would almost go back to what Morgan said. I don't know that you want to ask to take a break during the interview. This is just me, Debbie, speaking, but will they think well, suppose things get stressful at work? Do you know what I mean? Are you not going to be able to, this job is stressful. So if you're getting stressed in the interview, so I think it goes back to don't put so much pressure on yourself. Your answers do not have to be perfect. Prepare enough so you can talk about your skills, the great things that you're able to do, projects that you've worked on, accolades that you've got from other people. And like Morgan said, do whatever you do to help relax you. But the one thing you shouldn't do, don't feel like in the interview, your answers have to be so perfect that they're scripted, because we get that feedback too. The person sounded like they were reading from a note card. Preparing means just if I had an interview, whatever, next week, I would sit down and say, okay, Debbie, what did you do in the past year that really made an impact that you were really proud of? And I'd write those things down and I'd review them a little bit. But during the interview, I wouldn't be, and I would just talk about it. Like Morgan said, it's just people to people. We're all people. No one's perfect. And don't get so nervous about it. And the more you do it and the more you practice, you'll get better at it.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I can't tell you how many hiring managers that I have that are new to actually interviewing. And trust me, they're just as nervous as the person that's being interviewed. So sometimes you'll get the impression, wow, this person's more nervous than I am. Try and put them at ease as well. It's not easy, but once again, the more you interview, the more interviews you have, the more prepared you're going to be. So that's real important.
I did have a quick question because it's a two students have their hands raised, but how do you all feel about the, can I come back to that? That's a good question. Can I come back to that? Like that response? Are those good for somebody that's like, maybe you need to take some time to really think about what your answer might be to that question? So like, can we just circle back to that question a little bit later? Does that still show signs of nervousness, or would that be considered a good answer to that?
Yeah.
You know, go ahead, Deb.
No, go ahead.
No, ladies first, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you don't know that you'll have time to go back to the question, but I think it's a good, if you're like caught off guard and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know, that you don't want like that nervousness to then ruin the rest of your interview.
Right.
So to your point, if I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no idea, I don't know what to say, I'm really nervous right now, I think that's probably like the best thing to say. Like, is it okay if we go back to that question? I'd, like some more time to think about it. And then honestly, like, put it out of your mind a little bit, because what you don't want to do is then be thinking about that question when the next question comes.
Right.
And, and I think it's fine if every person, and then if there's time at the end of the interview, you can just say like, hey, can you repeat that question again? I would just like another opportunity to give an answer. So yeah, I think that's a good call out, Morgan, to
Yeah, you can always just say, can you just let me have a moment to, pause for a moment, just ask from permission. You can always revert to that as well, but you don't want to start answering a question and all of a sudden revert to, oh, now I realize what I wanted to say. We kind of pride ourselves at Prudential to prep our interviewers, to put the interviewee at ease, especially in the actuarial space. I think they've come a long way. So you'll have the opportunity, trust me, if your nerves are a little razzled, you'll have the opportunity to compose yourself.
Gotcha.
Did we have any other questions in the chat?
Yes, we have a couple of questions and a couple of hand raised here. I believe Caleb, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yes, so I wanted to know, sometimes when you're interviewing, the recruiter kind of like ask you if you have other offers from different companies. I want to know why recruiters want to know that. And also, what is the best way to answer that if you really have offers? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump on that because that's a question that I do ask on occasion as well. So for all of you on this call right now, if you're looking for an internship or a full-time position, in the 12 years I've been at Prudential, I don't think there's ever been a better time to look for a job. The market right now is fantastic. And we have found that even for our entry-level positions, the competition is fierce. And a number of our competitors, other firms, are hiring as well. And they're doing it in record time. So a recruiter may ask you that question. Don't think that they're asking that question, if it's too personal, but mainly I would ask that question because I want to know the timeline. In other words, if you have other offers, when do you have to give those, render those decisions on? For example, typically for an entry-level role, my clock is chiming, but for an entry-level role, it'll take probably a week or two before you get any type of feedback. Recently, what we've done is instead of going first and second rounds, we're doing everything in one round because candidates are getting multiple offers from competitors. We don't want to lose potentially real strong candidates. So don't be offended by that. You can simply let them know that you have been interviewing. And if you feel that you want to let them know you have another offer and time is of the essence, well, it's going to make the recruiter move a little bit faster. So yeah, that's a question, like I said, shouldn't really have to avoid. Now, if they ask you what the dollar amount is on the offer, I would not share that with them.
Great.
Yeah, and to Pierre's point, like we're not trying to, we're really trying to help you. So, and especially in the market today with so many people interviewing, I always ask people like, do you have other interviews going on? Are you expecting an offer? Because if they are, and it's someone I'm really interested in, then I'm going to go back to my manager and say, hey, Nancy has a lot, Nancy's actively interviewing. I just did it today, as a matter of fact. I messaged one of my like vice president leaders. I said, hey, this person was really good. They might be getting a job offer next week. So is there any way that you can talk to them quickly this week for a first interview? Because if you're interested, we'd like to move them along in the process. So we're really just trying to help you too, so that, but, and then Nancy, I think you had a question.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask regarding the tell me about yourself question. I just want to know, do employers want to know about you professionally? Your professional experience, because I believe it's already on your resume, or more your personal style, personality, and what are the boundaries when it comes to talking personally about yourself? What are the do's and the do nots when it comes to that?
Yeah. So I will say, I don't know that I kind of agree with you in that like even at Prudential with our new like best practices in interviewing, we're asking people more pointed questions, because to your point, if you say, well, tell me a little bit about yourself, I don't know that that's phrased in the best way. They should more so be asking something like, Nancy, I see that you've done work in Python. Can you tell me about a project? But if someone goes the general route, I would take it from on the professional end, a little bit of an overview. Just say, hey, you know what, I don't know, I'll use my background, for example. So, a little bit about myself. So I've been a recruiter at Prudential for the past 15 years. I've supported XYZ client groups. I've had opportunities to work on some significant projects. And I'm here today because, your role interested me because of XYZ. So kind of like that elevator speech, just to give them a little bit. It sounds like to me, a person asking that question is just probably trying to like open up the interview a little bit, get to know you. But I would stay away from the personal stuff, because honestly, like managers shouldn't be asking about personal things.
Yeah, we shy away from that. That was a big question many, many years ago. I think we kind of try to avoid that as well. But you made a great point. Your resume really speaks to what your interests are. You can always put down your hobbies and your volunteer work as well. But that's a question that if it is addressed, you just revert back to your resume as well. If they ask you about, let's suppose you did volunteer work for a certain organization, you can expand on that. But the personal piece is.
Yeah. And like I realize, right? So Prudential, we're lucky enough, we're a big company. We have a large talent organization. We're able to talk to managers about best practices in interviewing, and similar to what we're doing with you, we do that across our company. So we're giving people a good candidate experience. Some companies, they don't have all that resources. So if you're interviewing for like maybe with a smaller company or something like that, maybe that's where you're going to run into some of those questions, and maybe the interviewer hasn't been guided in the right way, but that's what I would say. Oh, and then Daniel, you have a question?
Yeah. How does answering a logical question from an interviewer proceed you like from the interview you are currently in?
So I'm sorry, I missed can you say that one more time? I'm sorry, I missed the beginning part.
I'm saying, how does a logical question, answering a logical question, affect your interview?
I'm having a hard time hearing.
What I'm saying is that how does answering a logical question affect your interview, moving from one interview to the next?
So what do you mean by a logical question?
For example, I had an interview where I was asked to I was given a scenario of nine balls, and then I was asked to find a way of lifting one which is heavier than the 8. How does getting the answer right or wrong, how does it affect your interview?
We don't really give those questions at Prudential. So, but now I get because I have heard of that before.
Yeah, I've heard of it too.
I don't even know that I can give guidance on that, because I'll be honest with you, if we do interviews that involve some type of like problem solving or presentation, or we're usually given guidance like from our assessment team to say, okay, this would be the situation. This is how you're going to be evaluated. Those logical, I don't have experience with them. So I don't even know that I can say how they're used in the process, unfortunately.
Yeah, we would shy away from that during the course of our interviews. We have interview guides. Now, you may be asked to take a leadership assessment that will ask you questions like that, but I'm going to be honest with you. I know we wouldn't do that at Pru, and that puts you as the interviewee in a very difficult situation. I mean, you address it the best way possible, but it's not, I don't know. Personally, if someone asked me that type of question, I don't know if I would just tell them that well, it's time for me to wrap up this interview.
No,
I actually
I
had that
wouldn't-
question.
I feel
Yeah.
like I hear a lot of people that
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard this frequently. It's definitely a thing, but
Yeah, we wouldn't, we don't do that here at Pru, but I mean, any question, you address it the way you feel it should be addressed. I mean, that's the bottom line, and move on.
yeah,
Move on. I
that's
could
the
see where that
point.
would make you feel uncomfortable though, because I know I would be.
Yeah, so I've been on that side. So when I was working in college recruiting, that was a really big thing. And somebody said it's psychometrics. So they basically are just trying to see how your brain processes all of the information. And I think like we mentioned earlier about stress, they're trying to see how stressed you can get like in a stressful situation, like if you can keep like a cool head. So it's just basically another way for them to kind of figure you out as an individual without like asking, questions. Like they really want to see how you operate. I've had a lot of those, like I said, and in the position that I'm in now, we do them so that we can try to understand each other more as like a team. So yeah, I get those and kind of like behavioral questions and different things. So it's like another way for them to basically just get to know you as a person. And
Yeah,
sometimes,
Morgan, I agree with you on that, but the behavioral questions typically, they're not as deep as that. And
yeah,
like I said,
they're
we
not.
tend to have that on or an assessment, not during the course of a 30-minute interview. But I guess the trend is different now. I've heard it as well. Thankfully at Prudential, we really don't, at least in actuarial, we don't go that route.
Yes. So I would say that to answer that question just a little bit, it may make a difference, but I've seen that it doesn't. I think that they just really are just trying to see, more of you. That's what we used it for, to see like how people process, how people critically think, etc. So some people can't critically think. Some people get frustrated by that. So yeah, I don't think it matters that much, but it's dependent on the position ultimately. So yeah, I just wanted to chime in on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Morgan.
Yeah,
That's a great question, though. Really good question.
definitely. You want me to go to the next slide?
sure.
Okay.
So final thoughts, and Debbie, you and I will take this in conclusion. The most important component of this is relax. Try to relax as much as possible. Once again, the more interviews you have, the more relaxed you will be. Interview is even hard for the interviewers I shared with you earlier, so you may have to put them at ease as well. Practice does make perfect, so the more you go, the more you'll know. Store your successes and learn from your mistakes. Once again, walk away from the interview, have a follow-up with the recruiter. You want to find out specifically, if you didn't get the job, why you didn't, and what, if an individual did beat you out, what did they have that you didn't have? What did you come up in short with? You always want to keep a positive attitude. Positive attitude is just going to get you, it's just going to strengthen your interviewing skills. Once again, market is great right now. You have nothing to lose, but preparation is really the key. The more you prepare, the more relaxed you will be, and you'll see great successes. I personally think in this market right now, I'm seeing a lot of candidates, both on the campus side in terms of internships and full-time, they're getting opportunities that in the past weren't there. You get maybe 1 or 2 offers and you have to make a decision. Take your time now. The ball's in your court. This is the candidate's market right now. So interview as much as possible. If you do get an offer and you have other interviews lined up, I mean, as an entry-level candidate, yeah, you probably want to jump on your first offer. The offer's going to stand there. I mean, when I extend an offer to someone, and if they have other interviews I'll let them finish up. I mean, we're not going to wait a month, but we certainly can wait up to a week to maybe 2 weeks. You want to have the opportunity to see what other companies have to offer and then make your final decision. So I think you're all in a real good place in terms of securing that first job or that first internship. Deb, you want to jump in?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I think I think you just, everything Pierre said, just, like he said, it's a good market. If it's, just don't over stress yourself. It's a conversation for the, 2 parties to get to know each other, and you just be you and you do the best you can. And again, you learn every time you do an interview, you become more comfortable with it. You learn a little bit more about like the types of questions, and yeah, I think that's it. So then lastly, we are going to talk about on the next slide, HireVue.
Yeah, we're running way over, so maybe we can wrap this to HireVue piece up, because I think we're going to have a few more questions to address. But Debbie, I'm going to let you take this whole
Okay,
thing.
yep. So I'm going to be, so I agree. I'll do this one quickly. So some of you may have experienced this, but basically some organizations, we use HireVue, do some type of digital interview screening questions. So this is what would happen is you would get an email with someone like myself, for example, asking 5 questions on video. So tell me about a time you used Python in a project. I'm just making this up. Then what would happen is they're going to record you on video saying your answer. And you'll get an email with all the instructions and a demo, but you'll basically have, so you're videoing yourself answering that question, and you'll have a certain amount of time to answer the question. And then when you're done, you click, and then you click next. And then same thing. The reasons why some companies use this is because companies that get a lot of resumes for opportunities. So let's say I post a job and I get 50 resumes. With all the roles we have, we don't have time to, we're not looking at all 50 resumes. So sometimes we're using artificial intelligence as helping us rank the resumes, or, we're going through the first people that apply, we're looking at them, and maybe we say hey, these are our top, on paper, these 6 candidates look great. These are the ones we're going to start with to do a phone interview with. So that's not a lot out of 50 resumes. Whereas if you use a tool like HireVue, I might say, you know what, since we're going to use HireVue, I'm actually, while these 6 look like my top on paper, these other 6 also looked really good. So it gives us an opportunity to reach out to more individuals in the screening process before we decide who we're going to bring forward to an interview. So the only thing that I would say is that in these interviews, same thing, pretend like it's an in-person interview. You should look professional. You should prepare the same way. You still have a job description. You should still see on the job description what things are important in the role. You should still have questions, and just be in a presentable spot. Again, I know we're all working at home. My dog started to bark before during this presentation. Everything's not always going to be perfect, but if you're doing, for example, maybe you work in your bedroom, for example, I would just have the bed made, don't have your laundry all over, just make it, do you know what I mean, as professional and presentable, looking into the screen. And that's all I really wanted to say about that, is just prepare as you would for a regular interview.
Definitely.
So yeah, and I think so Pierre, should we just turn it over then to any final questions?
Yeah, one thing I did want to share with final questions, and I'll have just want to you and I can conclude as well. So I think there was a couple other questions that came in. I really can't see my screen too well. But don't be shy. I mean, this is your opportunity to ask questions. Regardless of what type of question is, it's your time.
Yeah, we did have a question from Emmanuel. He said, how would you advise someone who, though not getting an interview, is still practicing? Does that help? So I guess not getting an interview, you're not getting interviews, but you're still practicing for interviews. Does that help? I hope yes, he said yes. Okay, yes.
Yeah, so no question about it. You want to keep practicing until you get an interview. That's essential to your success. The interviews will come. I don't know what stage you are in your career. Obviously, I think you're probably a recent graduate or soon to graduate, because I don't think you're experienced, because if you were, you probably already had interviews.
Career changer. That's what I was thinking.
Career changer. That's interesting. So I've come across a number of career changers most recently. I've seen a number of, and it comes from all different realms. I mean, it's unbelievable. But the key is, if you're a career change, you want to make certain you have your at least one actuarial exam passed. That's really important. To be an actuary, you're going to need that one exam passed or more. It's obviously because you had work in another line of business, you're going to bring experience with you, which is something that we really look at. Prudential does, because we have oftentimes have like data analysts that want to become actuaries. Well, it's great. They've had the experience. They just don't have the experience in terms of being an actuary.
Yeah. Good day. My question is in regards to Prudential as a corporate organization. Is Prudential a life and health insurance company, or what? Oh, is it including property and casualty? So what was Prudential like?
So we're not health and property and casualty. So we're individual life insurance. We are group life insurance that you would get through your employer. Also on the institutional side, we're group products. So short-term disability, long-term disability, other ancillary products that fall under that, like employer benefit piece. We are retirement, including like pension risk transfer and annuities. And then in addition to, so part of Prudential, but somewhat separate, is PGIM. So we're also a very large asset manager. So we're the 9th largest asset manager. And that falls under the umbrella of PGIM, and PGIM has like 8 different subsidiaries underneath it. So those are our specific business units. And then we also have like all of our corporate functions, like actuarial, risk management, and finance, and all of those areas.
Okay. But, okay. Do you want to say something?
Oh, no, go. Oh, and I was just going to say, but we don't do nothing in health insurance and nothing in property casualty.
So is it possible for somebody to transition probably, let's say health insurance to maybe your group life, or probably maybe the investment part or something like that? Is it possible?
Here, maybe I'll let you take that one, because
okay. I kind of caught the gist of that. I was reading another chat.
Oh, so just about like which I think from my time, but you can speak to it better. But like, just if you're a health actuary or a P&C actuary, you're looking to make a transition.
Yeah. So obviously, if you're a P&C property and casualty actuary, you don't have the SOA exams that we typically would look for. The good thing is that we're not opposed to hiring someone that comes from like P&C or any other type of actuarial background. You need a foundation in terms of just experience, but certainly not opposed to it. Most recently, we did hire someone that came from Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and they're doing real well. They've been with us for over a year now. So you're not like pigeonholed, if that's what your question is.
Answer my question. Thank you very much.
Sure.
So I have a question. I've heard this question on a few interviews, and they asked, how is the studying process going for the exams, and how are you liking it, or something of that nature? Is there what is the best answer you think I can give to that response?
Well, I can speak to that because that question just came up 2 days ago. Someone had asked that question to one of my candidates that we're interviewing, because they had, and I like honesty too. This person was sitting for exam P, probability. They did pass the first exam, FM, and the hiring manager asked this individual, how was it? How did you fare? And I love the fact that this individual answered honestly. They told him that it took them 2 attempts to pass FM because they just weren't, they didn't know what type of preparation what really was in store for them. So they failed the first time, passed the second time, and we're really looking forward to sitting for P. So my thoughts is that you can address that question. It's not easy. Debbie and I have attended ASNE many years, and we talk to hundreds of aspiring actuaries. That's a question I always ask them. I ask them, well, I see you are sitting for FM. Have you sat for it before? And they're truthful. They go, yeah, I did. I sat for it one other time and I failed, but I'm going to pass it the next time. So perseverance is the key. Never be ashamed if you fail an exam. It's how you get off the canvas, so to speak, in terms of a boxing analogy. If you fail, you get up and then you go back and succeed. So that question may be asked. Don't be afraid to answer it honestly, because no one is going to hold that against you.
Yes, they really
Thank
want
you.
to get to know you. Yeah, they really want to get to know you. It's not like a trick question or anything like that. That's what I used to think when I was interviewing. I'm like, oh, are they trying to trip me up? It's like, no, they just really want to see who you are as an individual. And if you really show them who you are, a hard worker, trying to, find your opportunity, they'll give it to you. So
yeah. And that's great. You're right, Maury. That happens a lot. Honesty is the best policy, as they say, but you keep in mind, every candidate that takes exams, all of us don't have the same activity as others. I'm sorry. For example, you have some aspiring actuaries that have to work, 20 hours a week. They don't have the study time allotment that others have as well. So, and I always point that out. If I see a candidate that has a lower GPA than some actuaries that have like a 3.8 or a 3.9, well, oftentimes there's a reason for that. If they're working full time and they don't have all the time to study as others, then I never would judge a person based upon their GPA. It's really based upon how they interview and how they got there, actually. So there's a story behind everyone's background. So and it's always a good story too.
that's amazing. Yes. I did get a question as well. It said, does appearance like dressing matters in interviews? So dressing up, I believe professional dress, is that important? I believe that's what they meant. You can let me know if that's what you meant in the chat. But yeah, they said, does appearance like dressing matters in interviews?
Debbie, you can, if you.
I mean, yeah, I think you need to. I think you should. I mean, I know we're, in a different age right now, but I think it's important to dress professionally for an interview. I'm not saying you always have to put on a suit or something, but I think, yes, I think you should dress up for an interview. If it's an interview, I think it just shows that you're taking it seriously, shows your professionalism. So yes, I would say I definitely think you should dress up. Or I should say, I should say dress up, dress professionally.
Dress professionally. And you know what? As a recruiter, the recruiter should tell you what dress code you should be wearing. It's, it's a question. It's funny. My son is interviewing now, and for another role, and he asked me, he goes, "What do you think? How do I dress?" And I said, "I'm not going to answer that question. because you should know. I mean, he has a couple years of experience. I said, you know what, take the time and think about the question you just asked me. And then he got back to me. He says, yeah, I got it, Dad. I'm wearing a jacket and tie. So yeah, remember, first impression sometimes is how you dress. So it's important that first five minutes of your interview is going to make or break you often at times. So if you kind of dress the part, you're going to really start the interview off in good fashion. But you know, I'm kind of old school. Back in the day, we'd have to wear a suit and tie to work every day. So times have changed.
Yes.
There's no question about that.
Yes, yes. I had both my interviews virtual and I dressed up. So it was just like feeling the part, like I'm in person, and it made me feel more confident. So I would dress up.
It does, really does.
Yeah.
Like I said, a solid recruiter is going to prepare you for what to,
yeah,
you know, how to prepare in terms of what I generally will tell candidates that I speak to what to expect in terms of the interview, especially in that first round. So as I think I share with you that Debbie and I have actually supported IABA's boot camp for many years now. We've done it both virtually the last couple of years and on site in either in Houston or Atlanta or other cities, and it's always been great. But one thing I can share with you, obviously we work for Prudential, but I know that we both feel that this is not meant for Prudential, for you to succeed. We want you to succeed regardless of where you wind up working. So what we try to do is not only after this session, I'd like for you, anyone that's interested, to reach out to me via LinkedIn, send me a LinkedIn invite, and we can pick up this conversation. Some of you may be shy, may have questions that you want to ask today. Well, feel free to reach out to me one-on-one. We also have mock interviews. So we were talking about practicing and getting prepared. Well, with Prudential, we don't just have this session and just leave you stranded, so to speak. You have the opportunity to have mock interviews with us, not only with one of our recruiters, but also with one of our actuary hiring managers or someone that's been hiring recently. So in essence, you can have a mock interview with a recruiter, a mock interview with a hiring manager or a true actuary at Pru. And then we do a follow-up call with you, and we kind of like summarize how you did, you know, and we don't sugarcoat anything. If you came up short, we're going to tell you. Because once again, this is a mock interview. Mock interview, it simply means it's a practice interview. It doesn't really count. Although I can tell you sometimes if you speak to one of our hiring managers and you do real well, that's kind of like leads you to have the potential to interview for another role. So I'd love for you to take the opportunity to take advantage of this. I think IABA also will also send you out an email to other companies. Take advantage of it. Any opportunity you have to have a mock interview, jump on it. You can't have, even if there's 5 or 6 of them, you're going to benefit from each one. So leaving that off, I'd love to hear from you. Once again, you have my name. Reach out to me via LinkedIn. I tell you to reach out to Debbie, but Debbie was kind enough to once again volunteer for this. She's actually supporting all of HR functions, so she's kind of removed from supporting the actuarial space, although I'm lobby hard for her to join me in New Orleans this year. I'm hoping to meet a lot of you there as well, because those of you who have not attended an IBA conference, trust me, you'll go for the first time and you're going to want to go back every year. So I don't know if there's any additional questions. I know we ran over, which we always do each year. But we, I can't tell you how passionate we are to support this organization and to assist you as well. So Debbie, you have anything you'd like to share?
No, sorry, I had to, my dog was barking. No, just echoing everything that Pierre said, and hopefully this was helpful. And like, don't be so hard on yourselves. And just like Pierre said, take advantage of all these different opportunities, and you never know who you're going to meet through these. And it's just, yeah, the more practice you can get and the more exposure and the more individuals that you can talk to in the industry, the better. So.
I have a quick question. So,
Sure.
okay, my question is about the mock interviews. How do we apply or register for them?
Oh, yeah, great question. And just reach out to me.
Oh, LinkedIn?
Yeah, send me a LinkedIn invite. I think there's close to 20 people that were on this call or more. I'd love to see invites from everyone who attended the call because, like I said, I put it out there for each one of you to take advantage of this, but it's up to you. The ball's in your court, so to speak. If you reach out to me, then we'll schedule. We're going to start conducting mock interviews most likely in the next, probably beginning of April. I know IABA will also follow suit with this as well, but we'll kick things off pretty quickly. We usually conducted these virtual sessions the last 2 years later in the year, so I love the fact that we're actually doing it in March. Really prepare you for your upcoming real interviews for companies in terms of full-time positions and internships.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Well, yes, thank you. Thank you, Pierre and Debbie. Is that, I know you all had a lot more to go over, but I know that we went over a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, you know, we didn't have a chance to go over LinkedIn, but I hope you all have a LinkedIn profiles or accounts. If you don't, then reach out to Morgan and she'll share my email address with you and we can connect that way. We can, you know what, just all I need is your phone number and we can talk.
Yes, yes, please take advantage of that. You know, we have this on top of our resume opportunity, our resume review opportunity. So you all, we're getting you prepared for internships, interviews, job interviews, everything. So we really want you all to be prepared for when you're getting out there in the world, from career changers, students, all of that. So yeah, thank you all for coming out, and thank you, Pierre and Debbie, again for answering all of their questions tonight. You know, engaging with us and interacting with us, and you know, just providing us with a great presentation.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Morgan, you were great. I mean, you had big shoes to fill with James King. So James is usually led these sessions with Proctor, but you did a great job. We appreciate it. We wish you all the best.
Yeah.
And I do look forward to speaking to each one of you individually in the weeks to come.
Yes, and in the weeks to come, either later this week or early next week, you all will be getting the, you know, the usual email that I send out with the PowerPoint link, the recording link, and possibly Pierre's information. If you don't add him after this with LinkedIn, I think I have you on LinkedIn, Pierre. If not, I'll add you, and I can share that information in the email as well. And our next session will be April 6th. I know it was planned for March 30th. We will be pushing that back to April 6th so that we can really give you all like all of the information that you need as far as exams. We're trying to have the CAS and the SOA here to talk to you all and some IABA volunteers. So just be on the lookout for that. And if you all have any questions, please reach out to me at my email, m.coven@blackactuaries.org, or you can reach out to me after I send out that email. But yes, I think that's all that I had. And thank you all again for coming out. And thank you again, Pierre and Debbie. And if you have any questions, just reach out to me.
Thanks, Morgan. Be well, everyone.
Thank
Be
you,
safe.
guys.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.